This is Quentin Langley for Brandjack News. Uh, Mulling over a bit some of the issues of press freedom and regulation from the past week. Huge story in the UK, of course, the News of the World shuts down tomorrow. Well, some people are saying that what we need is new laws to promote responsible journalism. Not sure I agree. I can see why members of parliament think there should be new laws. They're legislators. They think that legislation solves problems. When you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. But actually, there's a lot of law currently in place. So, what would a new law say? Seems a perfectly reasonable question to ask before you bring in a new law. What should it be about? And there's nothing that has come out in the past week which argues the case for a new law. There is nothing that News of the World journalists are alleged to have done that is presently legal and which should be illegal. Phone hacking should be illegal, and it is. Bribing the police should be illegal, and it is. What's needed is that the current law should be enforced. A system of statutory regulation under which newspapers are licensed and politicians tell them what they should and shouldn't write, that's not really appropriate for a free country. I've certainly marked essays from students who have argued that the correct balance between press freedom and social cohesion is best expressed in the People's Republic of China. That's not my view. I think, if anything, our law in the UK is a bit too restrictive of press freedom. For example, we have very, very strict libel laws. I'm a bit embarrassed that jurisdiction shoppers come to the UK to sue for libel when they could have sued somewhere else, but with less probability of success. Because our laws protecting press freedom are not as strict as the ones in, for example, the United States. We have a growing body of privacy law which is being developed by the courts, which protects celebrities and politicians from having their hypocrisy exposed. Well, I think that that's going too far, and actually, we should have a free press. We have had, traditionally in this country, a very vibrant and competitive press, and that's a good thing. Actually, despite the laws that are in place, our media in the UK is less deferential towards politicians and celebrities than is often the case in the US. Certainly, the print media is less deferential here than in the US. And that's a good thing, and we don't want to lose it. There's been talk that maybe the PCC, the Press Complaints Commission, has been a bit weak. Well, possibly, but nothing in the past week demonstrates that. There's nothing that has come out in the past week that would have been approved by the PCC had they known about it, had anyone known about it, but which should in fact have been prevented. In fact, the revelations of the past week are all things which the PCC would have condemned and which the criminal law would have condemned had people known about them and had the evidence been in place. Indeed, people may well still be sanctioned by the criminal law and sent to prison for this. So does the PCC need tightening up? Well, that's a legitimate area of debate. But actually, the PCC has been a bit restrictive on some things. Take a story in the Telegraph about 6 months ago, which exposed the hypocrisy of certain government ministers who were telling one story to their constituents and a different story to the press. The PCC said the Telegraph shouldn't have run this story. Actually, it seems to me like a perfectly good and legitimate piece of journalism. The PCC said that there was no excuse for using subterfuge. Well, except for the fact that if you go and tell a politician you're a journalist, you're going to get the story designed for journalists. The whole point of this story is that politicians were saying something else to non-journalists, and journalists aren't going to get the non-journalist story without engaging in subterfuge. People are talking about the need for media plurality in the UK. Good. That's important. It's being pressed very hard by the BBC. The BBC, of course, is the largest media empire in the UK, and they think plurality means clamping down on the second largest media empire in the UK, News International. Again, I see a bit of hypocrisy here, and I see a media empire looking towards its own interests rather than the wider interests of choice in the public. You don't improve plurality by clamping down on the second largest player in the market. That's not a way to get more competition. So if we have a review of plurality in the media market, let's start with the big beast. Let's start with looking at the BBC and whether or not that should be broken up. Only when we've already broken up the largest media empire should we even be thinking about looking at the second largest. So there's a lot of legitimate debate to be had here. How should self-regulation work? To what extent should there be statutory regulation? I would say very little. And how can we promote plurality? Where I would say start with the BBC. So that's Quentin Langley for Brandjack News on a week in which media ethics has been right at the heart of the political debate.